Alright, welcome back to DecryptedTech. Today we're going to take a look at the G1.Sniper M3 motherboard. This is part of Gigabyte's G1 Killer gaming motherboard line. And this has their Z77 chipset, so it's going to work with Intel's Ivy Bridge processor. And one of the features that the Z77 brings along with a little bit of improved performance, some drop in memory bandwidth, but an overall improvement in the core functions of the motherboard, is that Lucid Logic has gotten involved with this one. Even going back to the P67 and some of the earlier ones, they were working on methods of virtualizing the performance and the power of the iGPU that was inside of Intel's processors in combination with any kind of an add-in board. The G1.Sniper M3 includes this in the form of the Virtu MVP. This is going to allow you to kind of bank on that power that you get there for things like video encoding, video editing, and all of that, while still enjoy the features and the functions of having an add-in video card that's going to allow you that better gaming performance. Alright, so let's take a look at the packaging, and we'll look at everything inside, and finally we'll take a look at the motherboard for some of the component choices and the features. As with all of the G1 Killer gaming lineup, this is going to have a very big military flavor. You have the skull with the knife. You have the appearance of an ammo can, even at the top. They've put in a simulated handle, all of that, and you see this attempt at 3D. This is actually raised a little bit, so it gives it that more 3D extruded look. And then you have the background digital camouflage. All right, taking a look at some of the logos down here at the bottom, you'll notice that it now says Soundcore 3D. This is still a creative product. So you do still have that Creative Labs audio in there. It's going to be a fully functional audio card. It's not just going to be a codec. It's going to include some of Creative Labs traditional features, THX audio. All of that's going to be bundled into that. You also have option for Crossfire as well as SLI. You're going to have dual GPU here. You could possibly do 3, but it's very unlikely that you would be able to get away with that, as it only includes one X16 electrical, one X8, and one X4. Not really going to be enough there to get that fully functional. Of course, you have your 3D power, your 3D BIOS. This is a Z77 chipset, and it does support all of the 1155 CPUs on this board. All right, let's go ahead and flip it around and see what we've got on the back. All right, as you can see, the back includes a nice, picture, a graphic of the board itself. Of course, they have their little file up here, which is supposed to add a little bit of, well, I don't know. It's supposed to add something to the board to give you that feeling that this is a specific or a special product. It is in many ways. It's a gaming lineup, so the G1 Killer series would be similar to ASUS's ROG line, or anyone else that has a specific and elevated product line meant specifically for gamers or overclockers. This is a big gaming focus, unlike the ROG boards, which are meant for overclockers and gamers, so they kind of bridge both of those gaps. Alright, as always, you have your Super Speed, Super Hearing, Super Shield, and Super Sight. These are the 4 factors that Gigabyte talked about when they launched the G1 Killer that enables these to be above the competition. Your Super Speed is going to be Gigabit Internet, your CFOS Speed Internet Accelerator software. This takes the place of some of the other, where they were specifically advertising that they were using the Killer Network's Killer NIC. We'll take a look at that and see exactly how that performs in comparison to that as well. Super Hearing, of course, is going to be that Creative Labs Soundcore 3D that's on the board, and we'll talk about that in detail when we look at the board. The Super Shield is 4 smart fan connectors. That's going to allow, those are 4-pin PWM fan connectors that are going to be on the board to allow you to adjust that. Your Super Sight is multiple GPU support with full PCIe Generation 3, as long as you have an Ivy Bridge CPU in here. And of course you have your Virtu MVP. It sort of spells it out around the board. Of course, this is also an ultra durable 4 motherboard. And then you have a few additional things down here. You have a very small box with specifications. Personally, I think the specifications should have been a little bit more, should have been a little bit larger, so you're more exposed, and that's something that you're likely to see to get the overall specifications and see exactly what this motherboard provides to you. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get this unboxed, and we'll take a look at what you get in the box with this board, and then from there we'll take a look at the actual motherboard itself and some of the component choices and features you get. Okay, we've got the box out of its outer shell, and of course it continues that military theme. You've got that digitized camouflage, even on the inside on the internal box. We'll go ahead and open it up and start pulling things out. Of course, you have an SLI bridge. They did not include a specific Crossfire bridge, but you do have an SLI marked bridge. You have your I/O shield. This is going to have that padding on the back. Again, we've seen that in another Gigabyte competitor's line. They popped that out first quite a number of years ago, and it just allows you to push this in place a little bit easier without getting your fingers or hands cut up, and also protect that. You have 6 SATA cables. All of them are black. None of them are specific or outlined for SATA 3.0 or SATA 2. They're just 6 cables in there, which is interesting because you actually only have 4 main SATA ports on the board. But we imagine it's because of the way that they're packaged. You also have a nice bundle of stuff here. In it is a poster. Unfortunately, the poster is folded in the center, and it does put some crinkles and damage into it. You also have Gigabyte's now famous pack of G1 Killer stickers. Every time my kids see those, they absolutely want them, and we have a couple of doors that might be littered with those. Alright, you also have Gigabyte's multilingual installation guidebook. It's going to give you a quick walkthrough how to put everything together. Of course, you have a manual, which has all of the detailed information you need, and a drivers and utilities disc. And finally, a nice Gigabyte sticker. Alright, so that covers everything you get inside the box. Now let's actually take a look at the motherboard itself. As usual, it's going to be inside of a static bag. That just helps prevent any kind of damage to it. And we'll get that unbagged, and we'll take a look at everything on the board. Alright, we're back, and we've got everything out of the bag. So first of all, let's start off. This is a micro ATX board. It's going to have that same form factor. You're going to be limited in your dimensions, sort of lengthwise. Width is going to be about the same. Your overall layout is going to be generally the same as a standard ATX board. You're just going to be limited in the number of peripherals that are down here at the bottom. You have your standard layout up here. You have a USB 3.0 header that's now become the de facto standard to throw this up here because it's meant for the front panel headers. So you'll see that on a lot of boards. You also have one of your 4-pin fan headers right there, 24-pin ATX power connector, and your 4 RAM slots. This is going to be dual channel RAM, which is in keeping with the 1155, the Z77, and of course the Ivy Bridge CPUs. Up here you have another one of your 4-pin PWM fan headers. This is going to be for the CPU fan. The one down here is listed as a system fan, but you could also use it for RAM cooling if that's what you're into. Unlike some of the other G1 Killer series, there are no voltage read points along here. Everything that you see here is going to be voltage regulators and other components that are going to apply to power regulation and the way that it handles power going through the board. Speaking of power regulation, we're going to take a look at what we've got here. This actually looks a little bit light compared to some of the other lower, not necessarily lower end, but some of the mid-range Z77 boards. You do have some nice chokes that are here, but the cooling on the voltage regulation looks a little bit light for a board that's intended to run fast, run hot, and also perhaps be used for overclocking. We would have liked to seen something a little bit beefier that maybe covered a little bit more, but we'll definitely be checking to see how this works out, under operation. Over here you have one of your other 4-pin fan headers. This is also listed as a system fan, perhaps for something like an external, the rear case fan, along those lines. And then you also have the 4-pin power header here in a very awkward slot. It's just not going to be conducive to getting that in and out. We would, as always, we recommend getting an extension cable for that. Once you get this board in a case, you might not have the opportunity to get your hands in there properly to get something in and out. Alright, moving down to the peripheral slots, you'll notice that you have 3. This is going to be, these two here are Gen 3, this one is going to be Gen 2, and this is also going to be a Gen 2 slot. These two are going to be the ones that you'll use for Crossfire. The top one is an X16 mechanical and electrical. It actually has the pins for X16 electrical across the back. You'll notice here's your X4 slot, and then down here is your X8 slot. When you populate slots 1 and 3, both are going to operate at X8, so they are going to feed off of the same number of PCIe Gen 3 lanes that you have inside the Ivy Bridge CPU. So you're only going to get X8 for your Crossfire across those two. And again, these are the only two that are going to support full Generation 3. Alright, looking over here, you'll notice something a little interesting. Gigabyte has placed an EMI shield, electromagnetic interference shield, around their audio section here. This is that Core 3D, Sound Core 3D audio that's on the board. And this is supposed to help prevent crosstalk, overlap, and any kind of electromagnetic interference from the rest of the system when it's under load. It's sort of a knockoff on ASUS's PCB segmentation because although it does create a visual definition and support a little bit of some, EMI protection. There is no real segmentation here. As you can see, this actually extends over top of some of the components for the audio. It's a nice feature and it's a good attempt, but it's not a full segmentation for the audio, and it's not going to have a massive impact on your audio quality or on any kind of interference that you might get from the rest of the board if you were overclocking. The simple fact that this is a full audio card versus an audio codec is more than enough to improve the audio quality, and quite frankly this isn't needed, and it just ends up being just a visual impact to let you know that here's your audio card. Alright, moving along to the bottom, you can see you have a TPM. This is a 20+1 pin TPM, so bear in mind if you're going to buy a TPM module that you're going to need one of those. You have two USB ports here. These are meant for more back panel headers, whereas this one here is meant for your front panel header. You also have your traditional front panel pinout. It's down here, it's color coded, it's also inside of a nice box. You have a SATA 2 port here that is primarily meant for eSATA. If you have a front panel eSATA, this would be great for that one. And then moving around to the front, you have your 4 primary SATA ports. The 2 white ones are going to be your SATA 3, and the 2 black ones are going to be SATA 2. So that covers most of what we've got here, with the exception of taking a look at the I/O panel. All right, the I/O panel is very typical of what we're expecting in a Z77 board, especially at this line, this placement in the market. This is looking at the lower end of the the G1 series. The G1.Sniper is right below the the G1 Assassin and the Scout. So you're going to see you'll have a single PS2 slot that works for both mice and keyboards, 2 USB 2.0 ports, your standard video out, which includes VGA, DVI, HDMI, and DisplayPort. 2 additional USB ports, and additional eSATA port, which is actually running off of that other one that we saw that was mounted vertically on the board. You have a Gigabit Ethernet port, and of course 2 USB 3.0 ports, and then your typical audio out headers here. Well, that wraps up what we've got with the G1.Sniper M3. We're going to go ahead and get this up on our test bench, throw in our 3770K, and see exactly what we can get out of this. As always, if you like this video, be sure to click on the like button, make sure you share it with your friends, and be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with the news and reviews we have for you.